So thank you so much for having me. Oh, you've got them all covered, so hey, I don't feel so bad. But you can go ahead and put yours back on, then I won't feel so bad. So again, my name is Tammy Jo McCleney. Most people call me TJ. I'm pretty much known around Fayette County as TJ Mac. I used to work for the sheriff's office, and that's how I got kind of stuck with that name. So if you see me on Facebook, I'm a lot of places, TJ Mac, that's me. So I've been in law enforcement. Starting in December, I will hit my 31st year. So started out at the Austin Police Department, promoted to detective, also taught at the academy there, both the in-service and the cadet side. Left there to run a family-owned business that wasn't doing too well, stayed there for about 8 years, reserved in between there. Got on at the Belton Police Department, and I ended up being the first female firearms instructor in the history of the Belton Police Department. Kind of got into teaching firearms at that point, both at work and in my off-duty time, and started a women's shooting league called Guns and Glitz. It just took off. I don't know. I think it's a God thing. I mean, I don't advertise anything. I don't have a website. I don't do anything. But like this week, this is my 4th class. So I do these all over. It just kind of a word of mouth thing. But I started this women's shooting league. It was basically to teach women to shoot and defend themselves. Started it when I was working in the Belton Police Department. I have 900 women in that league there in Bell County. We practice every 4th Monday of the month. Started one in Fayette County in May of this year. It's growing pretty quickly. It is an outdoor range that we practice at the Fayette County Gun Club. If you don't know where that's at, that's in between the Grange and Giddings. When you pass St. Mark's and you keep going, it's on your right-hand side. It's an outdoor range, and we practice every 3rd Saturday there. If you want information on that, it's Guns and Glitz Women's Shooting League on Facebook. Like I said, I don't have a website, so everything I really do is off of Facebook. That got me into teaching these situational awareness classes. I didn't really know there was a thing. I didn't know there was, a structured setting for this type of thing, but I found that a lot of people were coming to me going, what do you do if? What do you think about this? And it kind of got me to thinking about the need to have classes like this, so that my goal is just to get you thinking about what we do in our everyday lives. You know, places we go, things we do, the choices we make. You know, walking into this church today, why did you choose where you're sitting? You know, I know y'all all looking around going, why did I choose where I was sitting? Is this a good place or is it not a good place?
You're better.
So we're going to talk about that. Let me open my little book here. So I forgot to do that. So I can make sure I stay on task. Now, she told me that she had mentioned this was going to be about a 2-hour deal. My normal situational awareness class is about 3 hours, but I know you're not going to stay for 3 hours. I will scale it down to whatever y'all want. I can do an hour, we can take some questions, hour and a half, whatever y'all want, but I will kind of hit the high points that I normally do in a class, and then whatever questions we have, we can just kind of go from there. If you need to leave, I know somebody said they had a Lions Club meeting, please feel free. Not going to hurt my feelings. I know everybody has things they've got to do. But I teach this class just to try to raise your awareness. Just to try to get you to think, am I making the best decision where I'm at? What can I do to make myself safer? So simply walking into this church today, if this was a Sunday service, how many church shootings do we have? One is too many, right? But making the choice to sit someplace, whether it's a restaurant, movie theater, church, at your place of work, wherever, may mean the difference between living and not living. You know, if you have an active shooter situation happen, a lot of times people are the victims because they were closest to the door. Look at her, she's like, oh, I'm moving. But and I don't teach this class to scare you. I don't teach this class and say the things that I do to scare you. I'm simply trying to get you to say, what is the best choice for me? Where can I sit? Where can I be so that I have the best chance of surviving? And it's sad that we're at this place, right? We're at this place in our lives, in this world, that we even have to be having a class like this. But unfortunately, that's where we are. And I don't see it getting any better. I really don't. Social media keeps getting worse and worse and worse. The things that are happening in this world keep getting worse and worse. And we were talking about it the other day. We said, you know, we see something come across the news or come across social media, and it's an active shooter situation and 6 people were killed. You know, this day and time, that didn't even faze us. We're like, oh, 6 more people were shot. You know, it almost becomes like we're desensitized to it. And that's a terrible place to be. You know, 1 is too many. And so that's why I teach this class, just to try to get us to say, hey, let's have our heads on, let's get our heads out of our phone, let's pay attention to where we're at, and let's try to survive and do the best we can. So somebody tell me what you think situational awareness is. Just somebody tell me what you think the definition means.
Being aware of your surroundings.
Exactly, just being aware of your surroundings and paying attention. What's the biggest deterrent to situational awareness?
Cell phones.
Cell phones. What's the second?
Guns?
No, not
Kids.
kids. A lot of people are distracted either by their phones or their kids. I can't tell you the amount of times I've walked out of Walmart or a grocery store or something, and a woman's pushing a child in a cart, and you know, she's fussing with the kid, or she's more worried about the groceries than she is her child. There's times I could have just walked up and taken that kid right out of that cart, because she's over on the other side of the car loading her groceries. She has no idea what's happening with this child. You know, it's just, people live in a world that's never going to happen to them. You know, they think it's never going to happen to me. This is a small community. Stuff like that doesn't happen here. Ride with your county officers here, you'll understand that it does. Right? We were just talking about, you know, this 155 being a thoroughfare for all kinds of things. I-10. Can't even tell you the stuff that goes up and down that interstate. It's pretty bad. And we're having more and more of the immigrant bailouts. You know, everybody thinks it's a border issue. It's not. It's a Texas issue. It's a United States issue. So everything that we can do to make ourselves safer is going to help. So where do we go every day? Let's talk about how to keep ourselves safe on places that we go every day. What about, let's just say, a restaurant. Go into a restaurant. My daughter and I love to go to Olive Garden, and I use this as a good example because it was a real life situation that happened to me. Walk into Olive Garden and Temple, the little waitress walks up, or the little hostess with her menus, and she says, oh, lunch for 2? And we're like, yeah, sure. And she's, okay, well, follow me. And she moves her little bean on her little chart, you know, to tell us where we're going to sit. And she walks us right to the first booth by the first door, by the front door. And she goes, is this okay? And I said, well, no, not really. I really not, you know, don't want to sit here. And she looks at me, because how many people tell them no? Nobody. Right? The only time I really ever see somebody tell somebody no is if they don't want to sit in a booth. You know, either because it's hard for them to get in and out or whatever. But she looks at me and she says, well, you don't want to sit in the booth? And I said, well, I don't care, table or booth. I just don't want to sit by the front door. And she goes, well, why not? And I said, well, because when the active shooter comes through the front door, I'm not going to be the first target. And she went. And I thought, oh, that was terrible of me. I probably shouldn't have done that, right? But it showed me that thought had never crossed her mind. And here they are, these young kids working the hostess stand at these restaurants, and these restaurants aren't even approaching that kind of conversation with these people, you know, with basically these kids, because most of them are young. Why not? As your point of contact at the front door, why are you not having conversations with these people on what to look for? You know, a person walking in with an AR-15 probably should get your attention, right? Or a person walking in clothing that's not, you know, appropriate for the season. Or just something's wrong with them. You can visually look at their face and see that something's not quite right. You know, God gave us that sense of looking at a situation or looking at a person and knowing that this isn't right? I mean, it makes that hair on the back of your neck stand up. They're not even talking to these hostess people about that. Do you think that hostess cares whether you're sitting in the front booth or not? No, she just moved her little bean or her penny or whatever it was on the chart, and she went and set you the next available booth. We don't sit at the front. Where do we sit in a restaurant? In the back, furthest to the back that you can get. Hopefully by an exit. Because 99% of the time, the bad guys come in the front door. There's kitchen doors in most restaurants, but those mostly stay locked. You know, kitchen staff can go out from the inside. It's usually some type of push bar, exit door, but most of those doors stay locked. So we want to sit at the back. Why do we sit at the back? What does it give us? Time. So if you hear something happening, you know, you have an active shooter come in a restaurant, or maybe it's a workplace violence situation. You have a woman that's married to a man, he's lost his job, he's got a drinking problem, whatever it is, or vice versa. That person comes to take out their significant other, and that significant other works there. Happens all the time. And the people in line of fire are usually the people at the front. Either a secretary, receptionist, hostess, whatever it is. You're just in their way to the path of the person they want to go after. But you're at the restaurant, we're sitting at the back, it gives us time. If you hear gunshots going off, you hear a car, crash through a plate glass window, whatever it is, whatever not normal situation is happening, it gives us time. If you're armed or you have a weapon of self-defense of some kind, it gives us a chance to get to it. It also gives us a chance to take some cover or concealment. If you start paying attention at these restaurants you go to, most of them have some type of pretty decorative planters or dividers or something made of concrete or brick or whatever it is. Get behind that. Flip a table over. Do something. But the main thing is you got to have a plan. Our plan is to see what looks good on the menu, right? That's most people's plan. And I'm great with that. I get excited to go out and eat. But I guarantee you I don't walk into a restaurant and not have a plan. I make the safest choice in seating, and then I look around to see what else is around me should something happen. Where is the exit? Where's the point of concealment? What do I do if something happens? And the main thing for you is to also work with this with your family. Make this plan with your family. If you have grandkids or young kids, or even if you have you don't have kids or grandkids, you got a husband or a wife or whatever, this is a team thing. So that you know what you're doing when something like this happens. If you're in a restaurant and something happens, you should already know what each other's doing. My daughter, since she was little bitty, has been through this a lot with me, and it might seem like it's overkill, but it's just a way of life. When you see what I see, what I've seen over all my years in law enforcement, you will understand this happens everywhere. This is not Mayberry anymore. We do not live with our heads buried in the sand. You have to understand that this could happen to you at any point, at any time. When I teach my license to carry classes, I keep a track. I tell my students, please let me know after this class anytime if you're ever involved in an incident of any kind. Either you have to draw your firearm to protect yourself, or maybe you got involved in a road rage situation, or just anything that happens to you. And they're all very good about calling me. You're never going to believe what happened to me, right? And I did this because you taught me this, right? Makes me feel good, but then sometimes the stories don't turn out quite so great. But right now, with the statistics that I keep from them calling me back, based on the number of students I have, I'm running 1 in 9. 1 in 9 is the number that one person out of 9, something has happened to them. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. We have 20 people in here. So that means 2 people in this room, based on my odds, is going to have something happen to them. And again, I don't tell you that to scare you. I just tell you that's life. It could be you're walking into a grocery store, you're walking out of a grocery store, you're pulling up in your own driveway, you're taking a walk on your country road, somebody comes into your church. It could be an array of things. But 2 people in this room are likely to have some kind of incident happen to them which requires some type of self-defense maneuver. or some type of self-defense action. So think about that. Those odds are pretty high. Okay, so we know when we go to restaurants, we sit at the back, we try to get to the exits, we look for points of concealment or cover. One thing you can do with your kids is have a code word, or your husband, or your grandkids, whatever, develop a code word. I don't care if it's blueberries, applesauce, whatever the code word is. That word, when you say that to that other person or to those kids, they understand that it just got serious and that you see something happening and they need to pay attention and not say anything. So if you're walking through Walmart and you see some strange guy following you, because do people look on Facebook and see all the strange things that happen at Walmart? I've seen 2 postings lately at the LaGrange Walmart where people have been following, some strange sketchy man has been following the lady and her kids. We have human trafficking here. If you don't think we do, we do. It happens everywhere. They try to find an opportunity where somebody's not paying attention, right? So, you're being followed in Walmart. This guy's got the hair on the back of your neck standing up. You've got your 2 small grandkids with you. Your code word's applesauce. You turn around and tell the kids applesauce. You need to teach them in advance. That means they come to attention and this is serious. And they stick to you like glue. What do you do in a situation like that? Do you go tell the manager? Do you get on your cell phone and call the sheriff's office? Or LaGrange PD, or wherever you're at? We live in the see something, say something mode. We want you to call us. We'd rather you see it and call us and let us come check it out, and it'd be nothing than you not call us. Because if that person is raising that hair on the back of your neck, there's probably a reason. And that gives us a reason to make contact with them. If we get a 911 call, that gives us legal reason to make contact with them. We can verify their identity and check for warrants. So what? They don't have warrants, and so what? They weren't doing anything. He'll live, you'll live, but at least we get an opportunity to check them out. And at least it puts them on notice that they're being watched, right? So, make a code word with your family so that they understand when something happens, what they're supposed to do. What about going to the movies? Any of y'all go to the movies still? I haven't been to the movie theater, and I can't even tell you how long. For one, it's so expensive now. Last time I went to the movies, I was like, golly, this is outrageous. But anyway, if you still go to the movies, where do we sit in the movie theater? How many movie theater shootings have we had? A lot. Why do they pick the movie theater? It's what they call soft targets. Typically, movie theaters do not allow firearms. So any place of business, any building that does not allow firearms is considered a soft target. That's because the bad guy pretty much knows that the person inside is not allowed to carry firearms, and so it's considered a soft target. But where do we sit? Typical movie theaters are designed, you have entrances for both sides, you walk in, turn to the left, all the seating is up here, you usually have an exit here and an exit here. And screen is there. Where do we sit? I used to sit down by the exits. I would try to get 3 or 4 chairs in, but pretty close to the exit on either side. The latest San Antonio movie theater shooting changed my seating position because he actually bought a ticket, went to the top row in the middle, and sat there and watched half the movie. And then in the middle of the movie, he opened fire on everybody that sat below him. Did y'all hear about that? Doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal these days. It's a sad place. It is an absolutely sad place to be in. But I said, I'm not sitting down there anymore, right? So now where do I sit? At the very top. I'm not close to the exits, but nobody's getting the drop on me from behind, right? And from up there, I can see everything happening. So hopefully I'm a better shot than him. Because most of these crooks are not good shooters. Most of them are deranged anyway, or on some type of drug or whatever the case is. And they're not trained, for the most part, not trained shooters. So we talk about this run, hide, fight thing. Y'all ever heard that, run, hide, fight? We teach that because statistics show that that's a pretty good method. So what does that mean? When you hear something that doesn't sound right, gunfire, whatever it is, you run. Get away from it. If you can't run, say you're pinned in an office or whatever the deal is, then you hide. Try to find a place to hide. Whether that's turning over a table, getting under something, whatever it is, try to find a place to hide. And if all that fails and you're confronted with somebody, fight. They're not expecting you to put up a fight. They really aren't. And we've had so many shooting situations where citizens jumped in together and overpowered the shooter. We have to start living in a world where we're not scared of these people. We have to start taking control. I'm not saying you gotta be superheroes, but I'm saying they're not gonna be ready for that to happen. That's not me, Cody. That sounds just like mine. I thought, oh no, I turned that off. So think about that. Run, hide, fight. That's what we teach. And if you can't, in the end, try to overpower them. They're not that good of shooters. They're really not, and they're not prepared. They're not trained, typically. Most of these active shooters that we have are young males that, for whatever reason, they've kind of, gone around the path of life, or they're not mentally stable or whatever. They're not out there training like military people for combat. This is a one and done thing for them. And they're typically not prepared. Okay, so let's talk about some other places that we go. What about work? How many people in here still work and go to an office of some kind? Not a single person. I want to be in y'all's group. Okay, so let's not talk about it. But now let me just mention work real quick, because this is information you can pass on to somebody, maybe your daughter or your son or whatever. The biggest thing about work is workplace violence these days. We've talked about that before. Disgruntled husband is upset, his wife's about to leave him. She works at a doctor's office. He says if nobody can have her, if I can't have her, nobody can have her type of deal. And he goes in and he just starts shooting up the place. When you hear gunshots at work, what do? She said hide.
Run.
I'd like you to run first, right? Try to get out of there if you can, because most businesses have back doors or whatever. How many of y'all that used to maybe work at an office, think back, had office doors that have locks on them? I see quite a few of y'all going, yes, no. That's something to maybe mention to your significant others or your children or whatever, to ask them to make them think, to get them prepared. Do you have an office door somewhere in there that has a lock on it? Because if you do, that's where you need to be going. If you can't get out, get to the room that locks. Because these active shooters, they may have a little bit of a plan, but typically if they come up against a door that's locked, they go down to the next door, right? They're not gonna sit there and waste a whole lot of time trying to get in a door that's locked. Okay, what about your car? What about your vehicle? How many of you know if you ever got stuck in the trunk how to get out of it? Most new cars now have an escape latch that you pull. If you drive a vehicle that has a trunk, your homework is to go home and get in the owner's manual, look it up online, and find out if you ever got stuck in the trunk, how to get out of it. Most people are like, I've never thought about that. We actually had a lady that stopped at an ATM in the middle of the night. Don't stop at an ATM in the middle of the night, right? If you have to go to an ATM in the middle of the night, go to a convenience store. They all have ATMs now. By going inside, what do you have? Light. People. What else?
Security camera.
Cameras, right? There is no need to pull up to a vacant ATM in the parking lot of a dark, bank in the middle of the night to get money. You are just asking for somebody to rob you. But anyway, she did. She pulled up into this ATM as she's, sitting in her car and she's punching the numbers. The bad guy comes out from behind the bushes. Because the banks, they want everything to look pretty, which I understand, but they plant all the pretty bushes and the shrubs around all the ATMs and things. And that gives the bad guy a perfect place to hide, right? So he comes out from around the bushes, he's got a gun, points it in her face and tells her to get out of the car. Don't get out of the car. What do you do? Step on the gas. Put it in drive, step on the gas. What's he going to expect you to do?
Get out of the car.
Get out of the car. He's not going to be ready for you to step on the gas and get out of there. Again, they're typically not good shooters. The odds of him hitting you while you're doing all this, first you're going to surprise him and take him off guard. And then he's going to have to try to shoot at a moving target. And even if he hits you, I promise you what he's going to do to you when he gets you someplace else after he stuck you in the trunk of your own car is going to be worse than him putting a bullet in your arm or leg or whatever. Right? Y'all like, man, she's talking craziness. What is this? What class am I in? I'm getting stuck in my trunk, you know. This is real life. Open social media, turn on the news. This is a real life scenario I'm telling you about. He had gotten released from prison out of the Houston area. He had stolen a gun. He broke into a house and stolen a gun. His girlfriend lived in Dallas, and that's what he was trying to do. He was trying to get to Dallas. So now that he's got a gun, he's got a way to carjack a car, right? He found his victim because she made a poor choice. He was just sitting at that ATM waiting for somebody to pull up, and she did. So he got her out of the car, stuck her in the trunk, drove from Houston to Dallas, and dumped the car in a Home Depot parking lot. She's very lucky that he didn't take her out and do crazy things, right, and then kill her. But she was rescued out of her own trunk by some people at Home Depot because she was yelling and screaming and beating on the trunk. She could hear car doors and vehicles going by, she said, so that she kind of knew that people were around, so she started banging on the trunk and they got her out of there. True story. So don't go to ATMs in the middle of the night. If you got to go to one inside of a convenience store. But your car, how many people have the cars that when you put it in drive, the doors lock? When you put it in park, what do? They unlock. You got to be cognizant of that. It means you have to be paying attention. Because if you put it in park and you're sitting at a convenience store, and maybe you're getting your money out of your wallet or you're talking on the cell phone, you're sitting there with your vehicle unlocked. Can you just reach back up there and hit the lock button? Yes. Don't sit there with your car unlocked. Pumping gas. I tell people this is the most dangerous thing you'll ever do out in public. What? So now pumping gas is dangerous? It is if the wrong person is there with you. So what do? We pull up to the pumps, we put it in park, what happens? All of our doors unlock, right? So we get out. Most people leave their cars running. Don't leave your car running. But most people do. If you'll pull up to a gas station the next time you go and look at the amount of people, and it's really easy to tell when it's cold out, and look at the amount of people pumping gas with their vehicle still running. They still want their radio, they still want their heat or their air conditioner or whatever it is. Most of the people leave their vehicle running. So they put it in park, doors open, they get out. They turn their backs, right? Car's still running behind us, and we're, scanning our card, punching our code, whatever we're doing, right? What's happening back here? We don't know because our back's turned. For women, where's your purse? It's still in the car, I can promise you. Because if you will watch the convenience stores and watch the gas pumps, there's not a single woman that gets out of the car and's got her purse on her arm. It's in the car. Usually with the kids. Ever heard the term sliders? If you Google sliders, it's a gang type initiation that started many, many years ago, but they look for that exact situation. They look for somebody pumping gas, not paying attention, has their car running, and they will open the passenger door and slide across the seats and get into the driver's seat and take the car with you standing right there. That's why we don't leave our car running. We don't leave our car open. If you carry a firearm, how many people in here are license holders? Quite a few. Do you carry? Most people are saying no. Why? I don't feel comfortable. I don't have the training. Today's the day we need to change that. There's all kinds of ways, I don't care whether you're male or female, we can get you up and running. Even if you're practicing once a month, you're practicing more than your average police officer. That's a sad state. Your average police department puts their officers through an annual qualification, 50 rounds a year. If you go to your local range and put 50 rounds down, 50 rounds down range, in a target or whatever you're doing, you're practicing more than your average police officer. And it's super easy, and you can make shooting fun. I'm not trying to advocate firearms for everybody, but I'm saying if you are license holders, which quite a few of y'all raised your hands, it doesn't do you any good to have a license if you don't carry your gun. It doesn't do you any good to carry your gun if you're not practicing. Because I can promise you when that emergency situation happens in front of you and you've got your gun, and you hadn't pulled that thing out or seen it in 6 years, A, it's probably not going to fire, B, you're not going to hit anything. Because all of your adrenaline is, pumping, and you've got to make those firearms muscle memory. You've got to make shooting muscle memory. And you could do that by just dedicating one day a month to going to the range. It's that simple. But do you make that a priority for yourself? What if you don't carry a firearm? Does anybody else carry anything in here to defend themselves? Do you have anything on your keychains, anything at all? There's all kinds of stuff. There's pepper spray. They make it in gel form now, which I like because it doesn't spray everybody. It just goes on your intended person. Coubatons, which are a metal object that kind of you can put them on your keychain, and they have grooves, and it's a metal stabbing tool. And I feel awkward. I'm standing in a church talking about stabbing people, right? But unfortunately, that's the world we live in right now. And I really encourage you to have some type of self-defense tool. Something that you carry with you all the time. What about the simple thing on your alarm when you hit that red button and it sets your horn off? Just having that in your hand when you're walking out from the mall or you're walking out from the grocery store and it's dark, because time change is fixing to hit in 5 days, right? 5:30 at night, 6 o'clock, it's going to be dark. We're getting off work, we're going to the grocery store, we're going to Walmart, we're going wherever, and it's dark. Crooks like the dark. They don't like noise. So you hit that thing on your remote and it sets off your horn, what happens? It diverts his attention, and now he doesn't like it because you interrupted his plan. So just having that remote in your hand can be a simple tool for you. But test it, make sure it works. Don't go, okay, yeah, I'm going to use this technique that she taught me, right? And then you haven't tested it and then it doesn't work. So test it on your own vehicles. It should be, if you've got your keys with you, look at your key fob, and it should be that red horn-looking icon. Okay, what about grocery stores? This is one of my pet peeves. Because people are so distracted at the grocery store. Inside and outside, but especially outside. We go to the grocery store, and my husband's the worst. My husband does all the grocery shopping and all the cooking. And I will call him, and I'm like, where are you at? And he's like, I'm at HB. And I'm like, well, what is that noise? And he's like, I got my earbuds in. He's walking around HEB listening to music on his earbuds, which means he cannot hear anything around him. He's clueless, right? So of course I always yell at him for that, but it does no good. But anyway, you have all these people walking around these grocery stores just concentrating on what they're making for dinner, getting their grocery list, whatever. They got their basket full of groceries, they walk out. Do you walk out and look at what's happening in the parking lot? Or do you just go, what road did I park in? And you're pushing your cart. I promise you, the average person does not stop when they exit those doors and look out to see what's happening. Again, head up, paying attention, looking to see, is anything weird? Do you have some sketchy looking guy in a white panel van parked next to your car? Anything that looks out of the ordinary should get your attention. And if it makes you feel uneasy, don't go out to your car. Go get a manager. Call the non-emergency number to the police department or the sheriff's office and say, hey, there's 2 guys parked in a panel van next to my car. I'm trying to get to my car, but it's making me a little nervous. Can you send somebody to check it out? Because how often do you see two men just sitting in a van in a parking lot of a grocery store? Not very often. It should get your attention. Where do you think these human traffickers are getting these victims that they get? They're waiting for that single female, young girl, whoever it is, and they're actually trafficking guys now too. There's apparently a market for young men. And it's a sad place to be. But this is why we teach these classes, to get you to paying attention. They're actually going through parking lots and marking cars so that their partners know that there's a single female that just got out of that car. Or they're tying things to the vehicle, to the windshield wipers, to the door handle, in hopes that, knowing that you're a single female or a young male, you're driving off and then you're seeing the thing on your windshield wiper, so then you're pulling over. So you pull over to get that thing off your windshield wiper, and what happens? They've got you. Or they get behind you and they lightly tap your bumper, like they rear-ended you. So now you've had a wreck, right? In your mind, you're thinking you've had a wreck. And what happens when you stop and get out of the car? They've got you. So again, you got to be paying attention. You got to be smart and think about these things that are happening. When you have a wreck, do you have to get out of the car? No. There's no law that says you have to get out of the car. If you look in your rearview mirror after you've been rear-ended and it looks like some sketchy person that you're not sure of, stay in your car, keep your doors locked, and call 911. When the officers get there, then you can get out of your car. I know you're thinking, man, she is overwhelming me with all this, right? But this is real life stuff where victims people have become victims because of these techniques that these people think up. So grocery stores, you really got to be paying attention because they know people's attention is diverted. Family Dollars, Dollar Generals, things like that. I don't understand why we have as much crime in those small little, type of stores that we do, but we do. So you've got to be paying attention. If you go to YouTube, there's videos of people kidnapping or attempting to kidnap small children out of Family Dollars and Dollar Generals with the parents sitting right there. There's actually one video where the mother and the bad guy's playing tug-of-war with a 4-year-old. Because he walked in, tried to snatch the child right there with the mother standing there. The mother realizes what's happening. She grabs a hold of the child. The bad guy's got a hold of the other end of the child, and they are literally tug-of-warring with this child in the middle. They ended up catching the guy, and he was some deranged, nut job. But that could be you. I think that was in Oklahoma, or I can't remember, but just an average old Family Dollar or Dollar General, where people are diverted with their attention and not paying attention. Parking lots, kind of going on from the grocery store thing, parking lots in general. When you park close to the front, park as close to wherever you're going, whether it's the mall or the grocery store or whatever. The further you park out, the longer you have to walk, the more chance you have of becoming a victim. So if you can park close, park close. If it's dark, try to park under lighting. Again, crooks don't like the light, they like the dark. Have a plan, pay attention, have your head up, looking to see what's happening around you. Most of your malls have security. So if you see something out there, because Christmas shopping's coming, right? I got in my truck to come here last night. I'm thinking it's, Halloween. Got my truck to come here, turned on the radio, Christmas music. I was like, well, that was fast, right? Christmas shopping's coming, right? It's November 1st. Crooks love this season. They love to target people because people are going to have what? Money, right? They're going to have money. Bank jugging. Anybody know what bank jugging is? Never heard the term? Google bank jugging. You'll be floored. Bank jugging is where the bad guy sits at a bank, either trolls around inside or has somebody working with him as a partner that goes inside and watch somebody make a cash withdrawal. Or they'll watch them go through the drive-thru. And they will follow them home or follow them to a location where they can rob them because they know the odds of getting something from them is higher because they just saw them make a withdrawal from the bank. That is what bank jugging is. So be very attentive. Y'all have a bank in Weimar, right? The most of y'all use the bank here locally. The Weimar Bank was robbed not too long ago, right? Yeah, because I did a situational awareness class at the bank, that's how I know. Small little town Weimar's bank got robbed. You know, they pick little towns like this. Why do they pick little towns like this? Less cops.
Not as many people.
Not as many people. You're trusting, but what's the main reason they picked the location they did?
Close to the interstate?
Close to the interstate. Because they want to rob that bank and go, right? So these guys scope this stuff out because they want, easy access, trusting people, quick getaway. So bank jugging is a big thing. So when you go into bank, do your banking or whatever, just watch around you. Look around to see if anybody's watching you. Watch to see if they're following you from the parking lot. If you pull out from the parking lot and a car is right behind you and every turn you make through town, they're following you, don't go home, go to the police department. Because guess what's going to happen when you pull in the police department? They're going to go the other way, right? But that's what happens to people that aren't paying attention. How do you not see somebody following you from the bank? Because
what about the window? You go to the window.
You're talking about a drive-through? Same thing. They'll watch you make a transaction through the drive-through. So basically a good rule of thumb is if you go to the bank in any form, and especially if you've cashed a check and it's obvious to see that you got an envelope back, right? Just pay attention to what's happening around you and make sure you're not being followed. Just when you get home, Google bank jugging. And look at the videos and look at the news reports on bank jugging. It's a big thing right now. And especially with Christmas coming, it's going to be even bigger. What about our homes? People are like, I thought crime only happened in the public. Nope. Anybody in here been a victim of crime in their home? Have a break-in, something stolen? Yeah? So in small communities like that, it's not as common, but what's happening is the more rural you are, in other words, the further out you live, I believe you're more of a target because meth is so prevalent, and these guys get in their vehicles and they drive around these country roads just looking for a house that sits out off by itself and it doesn't appear for anybody to be home. And sometimes they'll make what we call like a dry run. They'll pull up into your driveway and just slowly pull through and look around to see if anybody's around. Do you have dogs? Whatever the case may be, to see what's there to steal. And then they come back. Anybody ever have that happen? You wouldn't believe the amount of calls we get for suspicious vehicles. Some red Chevrolet truck just pulled through my driveway. I don't know who this person is. Why are y'all laughing? Did y'all have this happen? No. Because this happens a lot. Where these guys are scoping out these houses.
Really? We just had a strange vehicle sitting across from our driveway one time. That's been a while back.
And what'd y'all do? Just let it sit there?
Yeah.
You didn't go out there and go, who are you? And why are you staring at my house?
There wasn't anybody in it.
Oh, there
It
wasn't?
was just kind of a weird.
Our granddaughter was at home by herself, and she saw this car drive up, sort of, not all the way to the house. And of course, the dog started barking, and she jumped in the truck and wanted to see who it was, and they turned around and left.
Well, your granddaughter sounds like she's got a little bit of a go-getter attitude there. And really, most people will do that. Most people, because in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, well, this person is lost or they're broke down or whatever, I'm gonna go help them, right? And that is sometimes the case. There are still good people and there are still people that are in need and they do break down or whatever. But I also think God gives us that sixth sense, to kind of know, can't you look at somebody and go, yeah, they don't look quite right, or something's up here, right? Or that's somebody's grandma that's broke down right there and I want to go help her, right? So Just be paying attention to that, because these guys troll these back roads looking for opportunity. Don't give them one. What's the biggest thing, the best thing that you could do at your home? First of all, keep your doors locked. The day of us living like it's never gonna happen to us is over. If you don't lock your doors, I hadn't locked my door in 26 years. You will today, right? Today, we're gonna start locking our doors. Probably, I don't know, it's probably been 2 months now. We just moved to High Hill officially last Friday. And we were kind of going back and forth between the two residences in Giddings. We lived in Giddings for 26 years. I get an alert on my phone that came from the sheriff's office that said that they had received a 911 call in Lee County from a resident who had a camera in his home and could see a bad guy, a crook, inside his home going through his stuff. So he called the sheriff's office. Sheriff's office, of course, you know, go over there really quickly. They get there as the bad guy is riding a four-wheeler out of the garage. The bad guy has an accomplice who's following behind him in a vehicle. So pursuit starts. The guy bells off the four-wheeler and they lose him. So now they've got an escaped, you know, burglar, felon, whatever he is. So they put out an alert to everybody in the proximity to be aware. Well, I know my daughter's at home. And so I call her up on the phone, because this is literally 2 county roads over from where I lived. So I call her on the phone and I said, hey, if the doors aren't locked, go lock the doors. And she's like, why? You know, 18 years old. And I said, because they've got a bad guy that's running from the sheriff's office and he is 2 county roads over. She goes, well, Mom, I got my gun. And I said, well, that's good, but go lock the doors. I've taught her to shoot. She's been shooting with me since she's 7 years old. I've really never had to worry about her being at home by herself, because trust me, she's got an attitude like me. But I'm like one that should follow my own advice, in that we've never had anything happen there in 26 years, so we don't often lock our doors. But I had been trying to get better, but this was my last time. I was like, nope, this is it. We're gonna lock our doors every time we leave the house. And I know it's a pain, because you know you're not used to locking your doors. But this guy was on the loose for several hours. And from the images that the homeowner had off of his phone, he sent them to the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office posted on their Facebook page. They identified the guy, and he was a felon. And a known pretty serious felon. So this guy's out wandering around trying to find what? He's trying to find another house to get into, someplace to hide, a getaway car, whatever it is, because they got the person in the vehicle, so they knew that that wasn't an option for him, right? That could be you. How many bailouts we have of illegal immigrants happening on I-10 right now? A lot. Where are these people going? They get pulled over by the police and 10, 15, 20 of them bail out of a vehicle. Where are they going? They scatter out and they look for clothing, food, money, a car. Do not leave your keys in your vehicle in your driveway. We had 2 kids escape from the Giddings State School, which is basically the youth prison out there. And they escaped from the state school. They canvassed a neighborhood until they found a work truck with the keys in the vehicle, and they stole the work truck. So then they got caught. Once the work truck was discovered missing, they reported it, and deputies in Bastrop County got the vehicle, and they did a felony traffic stop on them at the, what is that, Buc-ee's? Yeah, Buc-ee's. They got him at the Buc-ee's, just because the guy left the keys in his vehicle. So if you got that old farm truck, whatever it is, you never take the keys out. At least take them out and hide them. You know, even if you're still...
Is it better? I mean, I'd rather take the car and go, not come to my house.
Well, they're really looking for a way to get out, get away.
Yeah, I'd rather go.
Yeah, so odds are, you know, if they look in your car and you don't have keys, they're gonna go down to the next, or they may break in the house. I don't know. But your insurance company isn't gonna be happy with you to know you left the keys in the car. You know, so that's one of those things. If the car's locked and your doors are locked, I wouldn't have a whole lot of worries. But what is the best thing you can do to protect yourself at your house? Besides have a firearm?
Alarm.
Alarm, and what else?
Dog. Cat.
Camera.
Cameras. Cameras are your friends. They're our friends too. There is no reason for you not to have some type of camera system. Does everybody in here have Wi-Fi in their homes? Anybody not have Wi-Fi? If you don't have Wi-Fi, that's fine too, because like my cameras at my new place, they have Wi-Fi built in. They have a cell phone camera built in the camera. They're a little bit more costly, but those things are amazing. I can put them anywhere. I can put them down by the deer feeder and watch the deer. I can put them up at my front entrance. I can put them in my barn. I can take them in the house. It doesn't matter because it has its own cell phone built in. I paid about $3.50, $3.99 something for the camera, and then I pay a $20 fee through Verizon to monitor it. So it's not super, you know, ridiculously expensive, and I have 3 of them. And they come right to your phone. So when a little deer crosses my camera at 3 o'clock in the morning, bing, I get an alert to my phone. And it's really cool because I like to watch the little deer and everything that's going around, but I also like to watch the bad guys. And the reason I got them is because when we were building that place out there, people would hit that new subdivision and they would go, oh, I want to see what's down this road. Well, there's no way out. So once you get down there, you're dedicated to going in, right? Because the only way out is to go all the way around my place and to come back out. And I got a camera and I saw the first guy come in at 3 o'clock in the morning. And no doubt he was a meth head. No doubt in my mind. He had no shirt on. He's hanging out the driver's window. He just, you could look at him for 100 miles away and tell that they're on meth. And I was like, nope, I'm done with this. There wasn't anything out there to steal at the time, but that's what he was doing. He was out there looking to see what he could steal. They were doing a bunch of dirt work. We had big bulldozers down there, and I finally realized he's down there ciphering diesel out of those bulldozers. And so I told the guy that owned all that equipment, I said, hey, I got a guy coming in here, because we didn't have a gate up at the time. I said, he's down there ciphering diesel, or at least attempting to. But cameras are your friend. If you don't have the ability or the knowledge, please contact me. I'm not like a tech guru or anything, but I've got several brands that are super easy, and I would be totally willing to come help you get that set up. Even if you've got the Ring or the Blink, or, I mean, there's so many different brands. I saw a friend of mine's got one called Night Owl, and I saw her images and they're super crystal clear, which I don't understand. You know, we have these banks that get robbed and their pictures are terrible. Why don't they just get these new cameras that the images are so clear? If you are on Facebook and you want to send me a friend request, I love that. I share a lot of crime things on my Facebook page, and I also share a lot of images from my cameras from things that occur, you know, like the animals or whatever, just to raise awareness that, you know, these cameras like mine do work, and it's a great thing to have. Even if you just have one at your entrance, or if you live in a subdivision and you have one, you know, pointing towards your front door, or one at the back door. My dad is 82 years old, lives by himself in Oklahoma. There's a lot of meth in his little town where I grew up. It's so sad, but he does woodworking, refinishing, and he has a little workshop outside, and it got hit 4 times. They're breaking in just to steal whatever they can pawn. And he called me after the 4th time and he goes, you know, I'm so sick of this. And I said, I'm bringing you 2 cameras like I've got. Guess how many times he's been hit since? 0. And I love that. And I also can keep an eye on him. I can watch him, you know, because it shows me, it shows me when he walks by to his front door, and it shows me back when he's back by his shop and all that. And I've been teasing him a lot because they have those little casinos there, you know, and he loves to go there on Saturday nights for 3 hours or whatever. And I'll text him and say, you're getting in kind of late tonight, you know, and he laughs. But anyways, those cameras are great, and they are really, truly your best friend in preventing crime, or at least helping us catch them. Do y'all still have ADT security cameras and things, or systems? I'm not saying I'm not a fan of those, but let me tell you how those work. When you have a security system, like an alarm system like that, There's a delay. I'm just gonna be honest with you, there's a delay in getting the police to your address. Because what happens is, you have an alarm system set up that when you have a door open or a window open or glass breakage or whatever it is that sends the alarm to the alarm company, what's the first thing the alarm company does? They call you, right? So they can't get you. You don't answer. So they've called you back 2 or 3 times now, you still don't answer. So then they finally call the sheriff's office or the police department for the area. And then they have to explain to them, well, we have glass breakage or front door entry or whatever it is, you know, showing on the alarm system. And then the dispatcher actually sends an officer at that time. How much time has passed? It could be upwards of 20 minutes sometimes. Now you have response for that deputy or officer to get there. How much time has passed? Long time, right? If you have the blink or the ring or the Arlo, I have Arlo cameras on the inside. My cameras are Arlo Go's on the outside. Those Arlo Go's are the ones that have the cell phones in them. That comes directly to you in the blink of an eye. When it's happening, I can dial into my camera and watch it live. You could talk to them. Hey, bad guy, I got you on camera. Police are on their way, you know, I mean, or you don't have to say anything, but you can talk through the camera. For me, those cameras are better than those alarm systems because if you don't have cameras that go along with those alarm systems, what are you getting? An alarm. You're not getting images of the person inside or outside. You're not getting real-time response. So I'm not knocking the alarm systems. I'm just saying that there's better methods out there to protect yourself and to help us if we have to respond to your house to, you know, when you reported a break-in or whatever. That's how they caught the guy in the county, was because the guy could watch it happening on his phone in real time. And he said, he just drove out of my garage with my four-wheeler. That's how the deputies knew, you know, that he was on a four-wheeler. So if you don't have cameras, please think about getting those. Y'all want to take a break, or do y'all, it doesn't matter to me. I could keep talking, but do y'all want to take a break for a minute, or if y'all want to keep going, I'll keep going. Okay. If you do feel like you need to go to the restroom or whatever, please feel free to get up. Road rage. It is a huge problem. I think it's so bad because there's no compassion left in the world. There's no kindness, there's no courtesy, it's just everybody's mad at everybody, right? And everybody thinks that where they're going and what they're doing is more important than everybody else. And so you pull onto the highway and you accidentally come into somebody's lane, you didn't see them there, and then what happens? They honk at you, and then you get mad because they honked at you, and you honk back at them, or they give you the bird, or whatever happens, and then what does that create? It creates all this instant anger. You know, maybe we're having a bad day, maybe we've got a headache, maybe we're not feeling well, and it just goes from here to here in like 2 seconds. How many road rage shootings have you seen on the news? And it's senseless. It's because somebody pulled out in front of somebody, or somebody actually came into the other person's lane. This past week on Facebook, I believe it was in Colorado, we had 2 grown men, fathers, one father in one vehicle, one father in another vehicle, get into a road rage situation. Each man fired their firearm into the other vehicle, and each man struck the other person's child. Each one of them had a daughter in the car or truck, and they shot each other's daughters. I think one was 5 and one was 9. Look on Facebook, it's on there. Just type in, you know, fathers shoot each other's daughters, and it'll pop up. What in the world? What is wrong with these people? Over what? Because you made a driving mistake? You know, first of all, those people shouldn't even have kids, if that's the kind of mentality they have. You know, second of all, they should not be able to carry a firearm if that's the kind of mentality they have, right? But that's the world we live in. When I was a deputy in Fayette County, we had a horrible road rage incident with a lady, and I don't know if she was from here or not, but it occurred in Ellinger, right by Rushka's. I think she either changed lanes or pulled out in front of the guy or whatever. She obviously made him mad. And he was trying to run her off the road. She actually pulled over. And when she pulled over, he pulled her through the window and was beating her profusely till a passerby saw what was happening, and that man stopped. And when he did, the bad guy stopped the assault and got in his vehicle and left. And the good guy that helped actually got the bad guy's license plate, and that's how we caught him. But he beat this woman almost to death over pulling out in front of him or moving to his lane. I can't remember which one it was, but over a silly traffic mistake. Turns out they tracked him through his license plate, found the vehicle in an apartment complex in Houston, got a warrant for him, and they ended up arresting him. That could be you. You go to Rushka's all the time, get the little kolaches and all the kind of great stuff they sell there, and you could pull out, not be paying attention, and pull out in front of somebody, and that could be you.
One question, because I saw this last night on the Houston news. Similar situation where the guy pulled in front of him or whatever, but he kept going after the person. The person said, I wouldn't get out of the car and fight him.
Right?
So, I don't know if that was the thing to do or not, but the other guy was so bad, he kept hitting his car.
Mm-hmm.
You know, came back and hit him head on, came back hitting highways, you know, just kept hitting his car, and people were getting on this one. No.
Of course they are, because people all video, they don't help anymore, they just
But
video.
the guy that survived, he
Mhm.
says, I wouldn't get out and confront him. I mean, is that
Yeah.
the way to go?
The best thing to do is try to get away from the person if you can. I mean, if he was going around and hitting him in the front and going around and hitting him in the back, he had to clear a path at some point. You know, but if his car's disabled,
Yeah.
then what do you do? You know, hopefully people are calling 911 and that person's calling 911, and I mean, I don't know, but people are crazy.
Yeah.
You know, and this happens all the time. Especially, you know, majorly traveled interstates and stuff like that. It just, we had a road rage incident right before I left the county. A guy, they got into some road rage deal and they were heading into Colorado County from Fayette County. And the guy called in, the victim called in and said, I got this crazy guy trying to run me off the road and he's honking his horn. And I guess the bad guy at one point pulled in front of him and he fired a crossbow out his back window into the windshield of the victim. And the guy's on the phone screaming, you know, he fired a crossbow in my windshield. And sure enough, by the time we caught up with him, he was already crossed into Colorado County, and Colorado County deputy got him stopped. Who's thinking you're going to drive down the interstate and get a crossbow fired through your windshield? You know, and turns out the suspect had a previous deal just like this. So this was his second time to do this. So road rage is a big deal. Do not let somebody's crazy anger make you display your crazy anger, right? Because I mean, I know it's easy. You know you haven't done anything, and then somebody's acting crazy and flipping you off and trying to brake check you and doing all those crazy things. Just take a breath. Remember this class, because it's not worth it. Just get away from them. Just back off from them, take an exit, do whatever you can do, but get away from them. Don't let it escalate to the point that you make somebody make a bad choice, because people have lost their minds out there. Let's see. Any questions up to this point? I know we've talked about a lot of places that we go, a lot of things that we do.
I have a question about home invasion.
Okay.
We were talking about this with some friends. At what point do you think somebody's trying to break in? Pretty obvious they're breaking in.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a gun, what point?
This way?
At what point should you do something? What part, they were talking about people shooting, but getting sued.
Mm-hmm.
Their families will sue if they shoot somebody. And what point do you have to wait till they're actually in your house? If you see them breaking in, is it okay to shoot?
So I know where you're going with this. You know the old shoot them on the porch, drag them through the door scenario? Yeah, we don't shoot them on the porch and drag them through the door. crime scene's pretty obvious that you've drug them, into the door frame. So what I teach everybody, every scenario, of course, is going to be different. And every person involved in that scenario is going to be different. Are you a 6'4", hulking, 32-year-old male, completely capable of defending yourself? Or are you a more elderly person that's, not very strong? All those things come into play. The key thing is, when did you fear for your life? Because that is the whole justification in Texas, is when did you fear for your life? And does the evidence that we're seeing when we arrive to the scene match your story as far as what you're saying? And every single thing is going to be taken into account. And luckily, we live in counties that are very pro-citizen and pro-self-defense. So if you take my license to carry class, we cover a whole section on deadly force. And I actually play some 911 calls to kind of put you in that moment, to get your heart rate going, to let you see what it's like to make a life and death decision in an emergency situation. I can't tell you a definite answer on what you should or shouldn't do. Can you shoot somebody through a door? Do you have to let them physically break in? I'm going to say it's dependent on the person and the situation. So I would just say the best course is to always remember you have to be able to justify your actions. If what happened makes logical sense and it's reasonable in the eyes of a common person, then I'm going to say you're probably going to be okay. Does that keep that person from getting sued? No. Anybody can sue you for anything. So I will tell you, and I don't work for these people, don't have any connections with them. I used to work for Texas Law Shield. I love that company, love what they stand for, love the attorneys, but there's tons of companies out there that offer self-defense coverage. It's now US Law Shield, also USCCA, I'm pretty fond of. There's tons of companies out there that offer self-defense coverage. It's not just firearms, it can be for any legal weapon that you are legal to possess, they will cover you for. It's about $10 a month. Super, super cheap. I have it, my husband has it, my daughter has it. And it's just to cover you for that exact scenario that you're talking about. Because if you have to take an action to defend yourself, I can guarantee you if you shoot or kill somebody, you're getting sued. Because I don't care if he had a criminal history as long as this room. He was somebody's daddy, somebody's uncle, somebody's brother, the breadwinner of the house, whatever. They're going to come up with a story as to why you need to pay for that. Okay? So Law Shield provides attorneys. If you want to look into their program, just look it up online, uslawshield.com or USCCA. Also a good program. There's tons of self-defense companies out there, but I do recommend, even if you don't have a firearm, it's not firearms coverage, it's legal defense, self-defense coverage. I would recommend you looking that up and consider getting that because it's cheap. $10 a month, you can't even go to Starbucks for that, right? So that would be a way that you would have a peace of mind that if anything ever happened to you, and that's in the home, in public, wherever. And it also covers, the thing I like about it is it covers your kids in your home. So if they get involved in a bullying scenario at school and they have to defend themselves, they're going to represent you and that child. So it's a pretty good deal with as much bullying and social media craziness we got going on right now with Snapchat and all this other ridiculous stuff. You saw that Schulenburg just had a social media threat and they shut the whole school down last week. It's everywhere. I'm a reserve in Moulton, and about 3 weeks ago we had the same thing. Shut the school down, it's just any threat now we have to take seriously. So if some kid makes a stupid remark or posts some stupid thing on social media that they're going to do something at the school, it gets taken very seriously, especially after Uvalde. You can't not have consequences for these kids that are doing this.
You mentioned cameras for homes.
Mm-hmm.
The big thing that's coming about now are cameras for your car.
Yeah.
And that will, if you get in some type of road rage thing,
Absolutely. Yeah, they have cameras for your dash cams, I guess is what they're called, almost like what we have in our patrol cars, but you just plug them into the cigarette lighter, and they film. You can get them front and back, and they film all your driving. I actually had a friend that was pulling a trailer. He had lumber on the back, and he was going through Giddings, and he had the dash cams, and a girl pulled out in front of him, and it was caught on camera. And that's the difference between, you know, you paying out money with your insurance company, or maybe not paying out money, you know what I mean? Because we like cameras, we like visual evidence. And so yeah, dash cams are a pretty big thing too. I actually have one in my truck. So, any questions on that? So let's talk about how do we not put ourselves in these situations? Just, you know, making good decisions about where we're at. Like when she's gonna walk out the door right now, is she gonna walk out the door and she'd look at her? That's what she's supposed to be doing. She's surveying the parking lot, she's looking to see if anybody
go to the other building.
Yeah, so, and it's simple just to kind of get yourself in the habit of doing that. It doesn't take any more time. You're already walking that way, right? Just stop for a second, look out. Do you see anything that gets your attention? Do you see some strange person sitting in a vehicle you've never seen before? I did a situational awareness class in Round Top on Monday. No, wait, what is today? Tuesday. Yeah, it was yesterday. No, Sunday. I did it Sunday at the family library. And there was a lady there that goes, I forget what church she said, but it was a church there in Round Top. And she is like the church secretary person. She gets there early and opens the doors and gets everything ready and whatever. She said she pulled up to the church and there was a motorcycle parked in the parking lot. And she said, it just caught my attention. And I'm thinking, you think? I mean, do you normally have a motorcycle parked in the parking lot? She said, but it just caught my attention. She goes, and then I looked over and I saw a guy sleeping in the gazebo. And I said, okay, so what did you do? And she goes, well, I just kept eye on him and I went into the church. And I'm thinking, okay, well, if you feel like you have the skill set to handle that, then, you know, maybe you just do what you do. But do you lock the door behind you, knowing that there's a guy out here that you don't know who he is, don't know why he's there? So she calls her husband. Her husband comes there. He goes and wakes the guy up, finds out that he had lost his helmet somehow, and it was dark, and he was trying to get back to Houston, and he didn't want to drive in the dark without a helmet, so he just slept there overnight. She said he actually attended church and put $20 in the plate. And she said, so it all turned out fine, you know, and I just had to laugh to myself, you know. But really, what if it could have been bad? You know, because isn't it weird that you have this guy on a motorcycle that's sleeping in your church gazebo out in the middle of nowhere? You know what I mean? So that's what I'm talking about. Not putting ourselves in those situations just by making good decisions. You know, I hope that people have common sense. I understand that a lot of people don't. It's not something you can really teach, but by looking at a situation and saying, does that look right? Or does that somewhat scare me? Or, you know, that can help you make a decision that might save you. And it could be anywhere. If you're walking in the mall, how many people go to malls anymore? Anybody go to malls anymore? Yeah, I like to go to the malls when I'm like in Bryan, or, you know, my daughter, she's in the Corps at A&M. She's enlisted into the Marine candidate school. Favorite place for us to go is Post Oak Mall in Bryan. So we're in the mall. Malls are dangerous. Why is the mall dangerous? Lots of people. Doing what? Shopping, not paying attention. What else is happening there that is not happening at a lot of other businesses? Spending a lot of money, but what can't you do there?
Carry a gun.
Can't carry a gun in the mall. So it's a what? Soft target. Most of your malls, of course, they're private businesses. I'm not gonna get into all the signage and all that stuff, but most of your malls, private business owners, they post signs that firearms are not allowed. So now you're walking in this place with lots of people, lots of money, lots of distraction. If you're close to Houston, you have a lot of what? Traffic, but what's the bad guys?
Interstate.
The bad guys? Gangs. Okay? The malls are their favorite hangouts a lot of times. And especially the food courts, because it's a central gathering area. So people think I'm crazy, right? Because I really almost take this situational awareness thing to an extreme. Like, did y'all just hear the car door slam?
No.
Okay, car door just slammed. So I'm like, "Chit!" And I get really, a lot of people think I'm rude because when I'm talking to them, that was her slamming the car door. Did you see she just walked by with a black coat over her head? She got on a purple shirt? Did you see that? Okay, so people think I'm crazy because as I'm talking to them, everybody says, well, to be respectful, you should be making direct eye contact, right? When I'm talking to you, I'm actually looking at everything happening around you, because that's everything happening around me, right? And I feel like I'm responsible for all that. And so I've actually had people call me out on it, like, what are you looking at? And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry, 30 years of this being ingrained into my head, this is just a bad habit of what, and I really shouldn't call it a bad habit, it's just a habit of what I do in order to keep an eye on, see, I told you she had on a purple shirt. But it's one of those things you just have to kind of teach yourself to start doing. So we're in Bryan at the Post Oak Mall, and we're in the food court because that's my daughter's favorite place to go. They have a little popsicle place that she loves to go and get the popsicles there. There is 2 concrete pillars in the middle of the food court. Otherwise, it's a big, open, gigantic area, right? But they have 2 concrete pillars in the middle of Post Oak Mall food court that are literally probably 8 foot in diameter. They are huge pillars. And around those pillars, they have the bar stool height tables and chairs that are kind of positioned around each pillar. Where do you think I sit? Absolutely by one of those pillars. Because when the gangbangers or whoever it is decides they're going to come in and, claim their territory or have a shootout or whatever it is, I at least have a chance of survival behind one of those pillars and a good place to, get my gun. Look at her, she's like, I'm by a pillar. Do you see her? She tapped a pillar back there. But that's what I'm trying to teach you, is you can go to the mall, you can go to the places you want to go, but when you go there, start asking yourself, where's the best place to be? Where's the safest place to be? Where are my exits? Do I have a place that I can get behind? Am I in the safest location that I can be while I'm here? But what about going out into the public like the parades? Christmas parade, active shooter. 4th of July, parade, active shooter. It is pretty sad that we can't even go out to a parade and enjoy, 4th of July, celebrating our country's freedom, Christmas parade, whatever it is, and not have to worry about some nut job on the rooftop with a gun. But you do, because that's the world we live in. So I'm not saying don't go to those events, but I'm saying when you are partaking in those events, just take 15, 20 seconds out to say, where's the best place to stand? Most of those people that the guy from the rooftop in I think it was the 4th of July, yeah, it was 4th of July shooting, they were sitting in their fold-out chairs along the curb on the street, and he just shot them from behind because he was on the roof. Did nobody notice the guy in the 4th of July walking by with the trench coat? That's a big thing. Watching people's dress, are they dressed appropriate for the season? The church shooting they had, I forget what the church was, but it was up near the Dallas area with Jack Wilson. Google Jack Wilson church shooting. Was it Sulphur Springs? Okay. this is terrible to say, there's so many I can't keep up. But that particular incident, the shooter had been coming to the church and actually had been working with the pastor, from what I understand. Pastor trying to find him a job, trying to help, whatever. And from what the article said, he actually started asking the pastor for money. And that's when the pastor told him, I can't give you money. And I guess the guy got upset with him and, made some threats or whatever. So that church had a security team. Do y'all have a security team here? Do you think you need one? Yes. And it's super simple. If you're interested in putting one together, I help you with that. Not a lot involved. It can be as good, great as you want it or as little as you want it, whatever. But they had a really pretty significant security team at this church. It was a pretty big church. And so this guy had been put on the watch list for, the security team. They actually have camera systems at that church that have cover the parking lot. And from what I understand, they got him on camera. They radioed to each other that he was in the parking lot, he was coming to the door. I don't really understand why he wasn't stopped at the door. From what I understand, he had on a trench coat or a long jacket. He had on a wig. That should have been very obvious. That should have set off every alarm to those guys to not let him in. But he came in. And you know how we talked about when you sit at church, where are we sitting? Do we sit at the front or the back? When y'all come to church, where do y'all come in from? So where are we going to sit? Right? But in this instance, he came in and he took a seat up here. And church services started. And then he raised that shotgun up from underneath that trench coat and started killing people. And it's funny if you look at the video, because the shooting's all on video. Go to YouTube and look at it. You see two of the security staff try to engage him over here. I think he shoots and kills at least, I know he shoots and kills at least one of them, maybe two. Jack Wilson, who was a licensed carry instructor and I think a former military person, a veteran, he shot him from 25 yards, headshot, and dropped him in that church. Again, it's a sad day that we have to talk about this in church. But this is reality. And granted, this is a small church, but do we have some unstable people maybe in the community that have been to this church as a child? Maybe, your grandson goes to this church or used to go to this church, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you think it can't happen here, I'm not getting through to you right now. Again, not trying to scare you, I'm trying to get you to have a plan. Okay? So if you develop a small security team for here, where each day that you have service, one of your license holders is going to take the responsibility of sitting at the door. Something as simple as that. Something as simple as somebody is keeping an eye on what's happening behind you. Is that person putting themselves at risk by doing that? Maybe a little. But can he or she stop that person from getting through the door? Probably so. Because they're not going to expect a church this size in this small little community to be prepared. They're not going to expect you to have a plan. And that's how you survive. Because you have a plan. I have a challenge point in my shooting league that has a diamond and a gun on one side, and on the back side it says have a plan. Because that is my motto. You're so much ahead of the game if you at least think about it and have a plan. And it would take nothing for y'all to get together, have a little security team, have a meeting. I can help you with what the laws, what the regulations are, what you can and can't do, training. I would suggest if you don't have an LTC, you get one. I would suggest that if your church doesn't have an insurance plan, that you at least each get self-defense coverage for yourselves if you're going to do this. A lot of the big churches will have coverage, liability coverage for the security team, but I'm talking big churches, right? They can afford that. If we can't afford that here in our small communities, then at least get individual self-defense coverage. That will help you.
We do have like 4 or 5 people that, that do carry every Sunday. We know that.
Okay,
We're keeping the back doors locked when the children go out for Sunday school.
okay,
We know that much.
Okay.
And keeping an eye, especially when I sit in the choir, I'm looking out.
okay.
You know, I'm not looking directly that way.
Right.
I am looking out.
And that's a lot better than a whole lot of churches I've been to that just are, you know, we want to still think our communities are safe. We don't want to have to think about this ugly stuff. We don't want to have to, you know, bring that doom and gloom on. But this world is just a world of doom and gloom right now. And in order to make our community safe, we have to take those steps to just make sure everyone's working together. Do you know who the people are that are carrying when you're in church? Okay. So the great thing for that, if you have those people, is just to see if maybe once a month y'all can meet and have, you know, a training, or y'all can get together and go to the range. That is a great thing. I have a friend that does a very extensive church training. He talks about, you know, security of your building, the training of your staff, you know, all kinds of things. But even if you're just doing one training a month on something, you're that much ahead of most of the people in the same situation. And you're protecting your churchgoers that come here.
Let me just throw this in right. We met with the mayor and the police chief recently, and they said one of the things that we ought to do is for the people who are carrying is offer them some sort of identification. They recommended a sash, so that if you do get called upon to shoot, that you put that on, so when the police get here, they don't think you're the shooter.
Yeah.
That happened in San Antonio, and they actually killed the person who had just killed the perpetrator.
Yeah, so that comes with training, you know, and these meetings y'all would have. Because you don't want, so the law does not allow you to wear any kind of uniforms that identifies yourself as a security or police officer or anything like that. But a lot of these bigger churches, especially if the guys wear dress jackets or whatever, they may have colored handkerchiefs or they have a wristband of some kind. There's some way of everybody identifying who your protector people are. It's kind of like the guardianship program in the schools, and that, you know, you have designated people that your job is to protect. And so that's a great deal.
And don't put it on until you need it.
Right. But one of the problems I do see is the churches don't have a plan with the local law enforcement to already know that's in place. And so that's one step ahead that you could already be doing that most churches aren't, is working with your local police chief or your local sheriff or whoever's in charge. Like here, is it the county? Is it Colorado County Sheriff's Office that would cover here? Because this is not in the city limits of Weimar, right?
Right.
It is or not?
They said they would come.
They said they would come.
Okay,
We need them.
so in that case, you communicate with both of them so that when you have your church group and you get all that put in place and you decide what your identification mark's gonna be, maybe it's a pin. Maybe it's a pin on the collar or something that you can, you know, identify yourselves through. Communicate that to them so that they know when they get here and they have a situation. Because I teach at my license to carry classes, the last thing you want to be doing is standing there with a gun in your hand when the police show up, right? So that is a very smart thing to do. But there's all kinds of things that, you know, we could help y'all with. If y'all decide to go down that road, I'd be happy to help y'all with that. What else? Do
One
y'all?
of the things I'd like to say is, I come up here a lot to practice, and there are people parked in the parking lot.
Mhm.
I've been approached by people that ask to use the restroom and things like that.
Mhm.
And it's kind of scary. And there's too many windows around here.
Yeah.
It's good to see out, but, you know, that's easy.
Well, so people know that a church is typically a helping and giving type of establishment, right? Hence the reason the guy that I was telling you about with the Jack Wilson shooting, he started out, you know, asking for assistance with a job and things like that, and then he went off to ask for money, and that's when it, I guess, kind of went downhill. I would be very leery of anybody sitting in the parking lot and you pulling up and you don't know who they are, especially if they go to approach you. I don't know somebody your size, you know, would be able to take on somebody if they decided to take your purse. I mean, if you're getting out of the car, are you carrying your purse with you? Yeah, so out here in the middle of not a lot of stuff going on, you know, that's a pretty I would say, sketchy situation for you. I don't know that I would get out of my car because we're just too close to the interstate for, bad things are coming this way. They're just always gonna be, coming this way. So that's one of those things you're gonna have to decide to take the risk or not take the risk. I don't know that I would. This day and time, somebody approaching me, I don't feel like I'm a mean looking person, but I don't have too many people approach me. Like at a convenience store, sometimes we get calls that people are begging for money at the gas pumps or whatever. I just really never have that happen to me. And I don't know if I just have that look on my face, or what. Yeah, I don't know. But let's talk about that for a minute. Do you think bad guys pick their victims based off of how they look?
Yes.
Do you think they pick their victims based off of what they see in their face, or what if they feel like they're a strong person or a weak person? Or they absolutely do. There's a study that went around in prison quite some time ago, kind of doing a survey of some violent offenders, asking them why they picked the people they picked. And it's because they felt like they were an easy target. They felt like either their demeanor, their facial expressions, their size, their age, whatever it was, made them an easy target. So sometimes we have to bluff them. We have to be bigger and badder than we probably really are in order to prevent some of that stuff. Because if you have a bad guy walking towards you and he looks you in the face and you're like, oh my gosh, I hope he's not looking at you, right? Right? Does that make him think that you're scared of him? Yep. Right. So if you have a bad guy looking at you and you look at him just as hard as he's looking at you, and you're kind of going, what's up, Do you think that he's like, oh, she might be a handful, right? That's kind of what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, egging it on. I'm talking about just putting your shoulders back, make direct eye contact, and let them know you got a little bit of spunk there. Because they don't want that. They want the easy targets. They want the weak ones. And that's a true survey. You can look it up. Again, even though you may be going, oh my God, he's going to grab me. You may be terrified inside, at least act like you're not, right? And that may be enough just to divert them on to somebody else because they're looking for those weak ones. But as far as you getting out of your car here by yourself, does the churches have cameras on the outside?
Yes,
Okay. What does it cover?
it covers the parking lot, the cemetery, all sides of the church and the parking lot.
Okay, so we would at least have an opportunity to get maybe a car or something. I would just say you're gonna have to use your judgment on that and but in the world we live in today, it's getting a little bit more risky, to kind of put yourself in this kind of situation out here, especially where you don't have a lot of people around. So I would just say you have to kind of use your judgment. And do you have a way to protect yourself? If you do decide to get out of your car and you're walking to the door and they approach you for money or ask to use the restroom, do you have a way to protect yourself if things go bad?
Yes, Amy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've got this gizmo, it's supposed to help me get out of the car.
Uh-huh. You put it in the, right?
Glass.
Mhm.
And it's got a pointy thing on it, and I grab hold of it and
Breaks the glass.
yeah.
Hey, mama.
So
Okay.
I can do a little damage with that.
Does it help to be on their cell phone? I'm talking to my husband.
It could, but if it's a true bad guy, they're not gonna care. Because there's nobody here at the time.
I get scared.
Now, one time, and this will show you how snappy my daughter is, when we lived in Belton for a short time, she was getting off the school bus, and the neighborhood we lived in was not so great, but we only lived about a block and a half from where the school bus dropped her off. And she told me, she said, Mama, somebody was walking down the sidewalk the other day when I was trying to get the house, and she said it scared me. And I said, well, what did they look like? And she told me, and I said, well, this is what you do from now on. If you see this same person or any person walking down the sidewalk approaching you as you're trying to walk to the house, I said, I want you to turn your cell phone on and turn the camera where it's facing them. And then tell them, that they're being filmed. And that's what she did, and it actually started them. You know, and I don't know who this guy was, but we had like 6 or 7 registered sex offenders in the neighborhood. People are like, I saw her, I was like, what? Do you know how to check registered sex offenders in your area? There's a great website called familywatchdog.com. I like it better than DPS's website, because DPS is just boring, it's bland, just bland. Familywatchdog.com is a registered sex offender site that you can go to and you can put your address in, and it actually will pinpoint within whatever radius you want it to be in, 2 miles, 6 miles, whatever it is. It'll actually bring up all the registered sex offenders in your area. But what I really like about it is that it's color coded. It's color coded to tell you whether the victim was an adult or a child, or if it was like a very violent crime. It's all color coded, and it'll actually bring up their photo and their address. You will be shocked. If you live,
What's the website?
familywatchdog.com. Now, the more rural you get, the more scattered out they are, but I will tell you that the registered sex offenders that, get out of prison and they have to register and do all that, they move to areas that aren't highly populated, especially areas that don't have their local police departments, because they want to fly under the radar. And they actually communicate with each other and set up communities. So I know, like, if you Google Dime Box, Texas, because in Lee County, I used to kind of track the registered sex offenders in my area. There was just a group of them that kind of congregated together in that Dime Box area. So look at the registered sex offenders in your, around your area, and maybe just do it for the county and see what it is, see how many there are. Now, your local sheriff's office is responsible for kind of tracking those people and keeping up that they're changing, correct addresses and jobs are listed and all that stuff. At least, no, in Fayette County, we did that. I think it's a requirement by law. But it's just something really good to know, because if you live on a road that maybe you have 4 or 5 houses, and the house next door to you is a registered sex offender, I'd probably want to know that. And it's too easy to look it up not to do it, right? Just go to familywatchdog.com and type in your address. They cannot live within a certain amount of feet of a school and things like that based on their requirements that the judge gives them when they're released. So those are all really good things to know. I know we did have one that was renting a house that was within that limit that he could not be next to a school, and they ended up filing on him for that. Because he's a registered sex offender and he's right next to the school, right? That's where he wants to be, but that's where we don't want him to be. So that's also another good thing to look at. Also share that with your family. Share that with your daughters and your sons if you've got grandkids, so they can do their addresses. And maybe they're going to find out, because these guys don't go around and advertise, hey, I'm a registered sex offender and I live next door. So it's a really good thing to look up. Any other questions? I know I wanted to keep this at about 2 hours. We're at...
I have one. The last time I heard you speak, you were talking about cell phones in your home,
Mhm.
and how they could help you be safe or more safe
Cell phones in your home.
in your home when you mentioned taking your cell phone to the
Yeah. So, we don't know, does anybody in here still have a landline?
Yeah.
Landline phone?
Yeah.
You just find not too many people have them anymore, right? And if we have a landline phone, that we've probably got one, it's in the kitchen or whatever. But most everybody has cell phones. Anybody in here not have a cell phone? Okay, so everybody's got a cell phone. What we were talking about is trying to be safe in your home and having plans in your home, because that's just as important as being out in the public. And we also kind of let our guard down when we're at home, right? We feel like that's our sanctuary, that's our place of peace or whatever. We think, oh, it's never going to happen in my home. Who brought up home invasions earlier? Somebody did. Oh, we're having a ton of those. A ton of those home invasions. Now they're mostly happening in that kind of Houston, Austin area. But don't think it can't happen here. But think about having a plan. If you're taking a shower and you hear somebody kick in the back door, What are you doing? Do you have a way to call 911? I bet your cell phone is either sitting in your bedroom on the nightstand or it's sitting in the kitchen on the counter, right? Or it's in your purse, wherever your purse is. You know, think about those things. If you have firearms in the home, where are those firearms?
Every door.
You're my kind of guy right there. He said every door, right?
Every door.
Do what?
Every drawer.
Every drawer, yeah. But think about that. You know, you may not be in the room where your firearm is. You may not be in the room where your cell phone is. So you have to be cognizant of that and kind of think about the way my old house was. It was a very long ranch house. So it was definitely like if something happened and I was in the bedroom and something was happening in the kitchen or the daughter's side of the house, that's a long way for me to get to not have a firearm or a cell phone to get help. So you think about those things. When you take a shower and you're home alone, how many people live home alone? Quite a few, okay? When you go take a shower, do you lock the bathroom door? You're my kind of girl right there, right? I know that sounds crazy. I know you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is so much work. You won't think it's so much work when some guy kicks in your kitchen door or your front door and you're in the shower and now you've got your cell phone and your gun. Did y'all see the thing on Facebook 3 days ago where the single mom was at home in Houston with her kids and she heard somebody breaking in, so she hurried them all to the bedroom and locked the door? She's on the phone with 911 telling them somebody broke into the house and now they're trying to break into her bedroom door. She shot him through the bedroom door. I was like, you go girl, right? Now he fled, but they found him down the street, you know, 3 or 4 houses down with a gunshot wound in the arm. She survived, her kids survived, and the bad guy got shot. That was just 3 or 4 days ago on Facebook. And I shared it on my Facebook. So I share stories like that to, you know, promote the fact that people are paying attention and have a plan. Did she have a plan? She absolutely had a plan. And that's how she survived. This guy's breaking in. What's he going to do knowing she's home with her kids? If people break in during the daytime, what are they typically after? Money, jewelry, property. If they break in the nighttime, what are they after? You. Got to think about that. And the situational awareness class I did on Sunday in Round Top, you know, it was Round Top weekend, Antiques Fair, whatever. You know, those people are in, you know, hell for 2 weeks over there. One of the ladies that was in the class was telling me that her friend came home. She was working the fair for another friend, I guess, and she came home and there was a guy rifling through her stuff in her bedroom when she got home. This was in Round Top. Little, tiny, quaint, quiet, just like this. And he turned out to be some illegal immigrant that didn't speak English and I guess was there working the fair for somebody else or whatever the case was. And here she was just coming home after working the fair thinking, you know, she's in her sanctuary. What are you doing if you walk into your bedroom and there's a guy in your bedroom going through your dresser drawer?
Right.
Are you quick?
No.
I'm 55. I'm pretty quick, but I'm not as quick as I used to be. What if you can't run?
And what if you don't have a gun? Then what do you do?
What do you do?
You better find something. There's tons of self-defense tools out there. But the point I'm trying to make is you've got to have a plan. We had a female officer that put a guy in jail. He spent many years in prison, got out, started stalking her. She didn't know it. She comes home from work in uniform, walks up her own sidewalk to her own front door. He's hiding in the bushes. She unlocks the door. He pushes her inside and kills her. Have you ever thought about those bushes that are around your front door? Have you ever thought about the fact that if you've got a garage door opener and you hit that garage door opener and you drive in, do you ever look in the rearview mirror or your side mirrors to make sure nobody slid underneath there behind you? Because when the door comes down, where are you? Trapped in there with him. Everybody's thinking about, do I have bushes around my front door? Right? Just these things that I'm trying to get you to go, maybe I need to look at that. Maybe I need to change that. Maybe I need some more lighting. Maybe I need a camera. Maybe I need to pay attention when I pull into my driveway. There's tons and tons of calls where people are carjacked out of their own driveway. Because what happens? We pull in, we're at home, right? We're at home, we feel comfortable. We're not thinking somebody's coming up behind us as I'm getting out of the car to take my vehicle, right? And we have so many that are trapped inside the garage with the person because they never stop to look to see if somebody's sneaking in behind. Look it up on YouTube, there's tons of videos of that garage door going down and that bad guy going right under that door. And the person in the car never saw him.
I just wanted to mention, I talked to a 911 dispatcher for Colorado County, and I didn't realize this because I live in the country and I have like an automatic gate.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm home, the gate is closed. But she said if you have a call, a 911 call, you can tell the Colorado County people ahead of time, my gate opener is up to the side, where to find it so they can open it quickly. Otherwise, they're going to be hunting for it, you know.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
And they'll put it in the notes so that
Yes, ma'am.
any call that comes up will say, okay, I'm going to open this here. Or if you have keys outside,
Mm-hmm.
tell them where they are,
Yes.
so they can get into your house.
So the local fire department, local sheriff's office, or your local police department should all have your gate code or how you enter somewhere on file. So I don't know what kind of computer system they have in Colorado County, but I know in Fayette County, they can put notes in, so when your address pops up, it'll say gate code is 01234, whatever it is. That should always be on file because you don't want to be, you know, having a bad guy in your home and you're holding them at gunpoint or whatever, and the sheriff's office can't get in, right? A lot of people don't know that those automatic gates have a control box on the side, and typically there's a button you can push that will just open that gate. Do y'all have those types of gates?
Yeah.
Do you know if you have a button on your box?
Yep.
Because the gate people don't tell you this. As police officers, most of the time we can just go hit that button, that gate will open right up. Do you think the bad guys know that?
Yes.
So take your key and turn that off. Usually those control boxes have a key that you can open and hit that button to make it go off. Don't let that button be live. And I can't tell you for the longest time, I didn't know that. I didn't know, because I kept thinking, well, how is that water guy getting in? He didn't have the code. You know, they come to flush the water lines. And so one day I stopped him and asked him, I said, did somebody give you the code? He goes, no, I just hit the button on the side of the box. I was like, oh, guess I should change that, right? So you can turn those buttons off. Also, if you have those pins that hold the arm on, get a locking pin so they can't just pull the pin. I watched somebody on camera at my old house helping my son move some stuff. My son went down there and let them in, but then when they go to leave, they don't know the code so they can't get out. We don't have one of those access controls because of the cattle. And they just went over to my gate and pulled the pin. Opened the gate, swung it back. Drove out, put the gate back, and I was like, oh, we're changing that, right? So it's those things that you don't think about. These crooks know these things. They study ways to break into your car, how to, you know, rig your ignition to work, how to, you know, it's crazy how they study all these ways to commit crimes. You know, so you've got to be smarter than them. But yeah, having your code on file is very important. If everything is controlled here through the county, or if you live in the county, then fire department, all that, I'm assuming is going to be controlled through that dispatch like it is there. Just call non-emergency number, give them your address and your name. They either have a book or they put it in the system so that if you do have a fire or, you know, there's a suspicious person or whatever, the officers or the fire department can get in. That's real important. Any other questions? Well, I've pretty much hit the high points of everything that I talk about. One of the things that I do want to just mention, because we are coming up on the holiday season, is you just have to be super vigilant right now with, you know, everything that you do when you're out in public or even at home, because Most of these crooks have families too. They're trying to find money to buy gifts and food and whatever else. You know, the typical things, if you get electronics for your grandkids or yourself, you know, don't set those boxes out by the trash where they're visible, where they can see you just got a big new, you know, big screen TV or a brand new HP computer or whatever. You know, try to, if you have to rip those boxes up and put them in a trash bag, do that so that you disguise that stuff. Because like me, my trash cans are just right outside my gate. So if I was to set a box or something, you know, anybody that drives by is gonna see that, right? And I don't know if that's how y'all's trash works, but, you know, just be very vigilant about advertising what you have in your house. Please take the time to video your house as far as all the contents that you have in your house. If you have serial numbers on things, please write them down. That also helps us when we respond. If you have a burglary or a break-in or something, everybody lives in the world, it's never gonna happen to them, right? So that when we respond, maybe their ATV is stolen, you know, somebody broke into their vehicle and stole a bunch of stuff out of their vehicle, they never have the stuff we need. If we have the immediate information to get into the system, it goes into the system so that if somebody comes across that lawnmower and you had a serial number or a VIN or something on it or whatever it was, a UTV, trailer, whatever it was, that immediately goes in the system if we have that information. If you don't have it, and it gets, you know, somebody stops it going down the highway and they run that trailer, but we don't have any information on it in the system yet, they're gone. But if it's already in the system, that's how we catch them. It is a law that items that are pawned have to be run through the pawn system, so that's also how we crisscross the pawn system, so that if you have something that we can identify that was stolen that comes across the pawn system, that's how we also recover it. We also solve a lot of other crimes through that system too. So just take the time to secure your house, you know, trim away the bushes, get them down to a normal level where people can't hide behind them, get lighting, get cameras, and then do that video so you can, especially for the insurance company. Hurricane season, whatever else it is we may have, that's just something good to have so that we can, you know, when you provide that to your insurance company or if you have a break-in, we can have that information to know exactly what it was. But then write all that stuff down and get serial numbers and VINs and just keep it in a safe place. Because that will, you'll be, I'm so glad she told me to do that and I went home and did that. I know most police departments, sheriff's office have a little engraving tool that you can come by and get. So if you have something that doesn't really have a serial number or VIN, we want you to put your driver's license number in there. You just take the little engraving tool and they're pretty cheap. You can buy them at Walmart or whatever. And it just basically scratches your driver's license number into something. A lot of times that keeps those guys from pawning things or even stealing them if they turn them over and they've got a driver's license number etched in there. So just some safety tips as we're coming along for the holidays to try to keep you, you know, not being a victim. And if you are an unfortunate victim, maybe we can help catch them. Any other questions?
I'd like to just mention, this has happened, gosh, I guess about 40 years ago in Katy. Went to our bank over there and not paying attention. I had my back turned. While I had my back turned, the bank was robbed. I never even knew it. So they said, lock all the doors.
So we're going to work on that situation.
Probably they got it.
Are y'all married?
Yes.
Yes.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Do what?
I have a question.
Okay.
What do you mentioned several things to carry, pepper spray or whatever that other thing was.
A Kubaton?
What do you think of, I won one time one of the alarms that you pull the pin and it emits a loud noise. What do you think of those?
I think those are good. That's really not a self-defense tool.
No.
But what it does is it creates noise that the bad guys don't like. They're not going to like anything that draws attention to the issue. And so if you have the ability to pull that, you know, or set that alarm off or whatever, I think it's better than nothing. But I would always have some.
What was the thing you said to hold?
It's a Kubaton. Kubaton, yeah, you can just Google that, and there's all kinds of them. Don't get the blunt, the one that's rounded on the edge. Get the pointed one. And they have the little finger grooves, and it's just a little metal rod. It's a little bit thicker than a pencil, but it's made of steel, And you know, they're about this long, so you can carry them on your keychain, and it's just,
Or run with them.
or run with them.
My daughter jogs by
Yes.
herself.
Yeah, a lot of joggers been killed lately. Have y'all noticed the rash of female joggers that have been abducted and killed? It's getting kind of crazy, and I have several friends that are in running groups, and they're all having these things where they're making dates to run together, you know, instead of running individually, just because it seems to have gotten so bad. They had that one just a couple weeks ago. I think she was a teacher or something. Yeah, and that guy just, the thing that saved her, or actually didn't save her, he ended up killing her, but the reason they caught him was, it was caught on camera. When she was jogging through, I think it was Central Park in New York or wherever she was, it showed her jogging by the camera, and then the next camera actually caught his vehicle sitting on the side of the street there, and they were able to zoom in on that and get a license plate and figure out who he was, and then they ended up, I guess, surveying him and figuring out that he was a probable person, and they ended up arresting him, and then he told them where she was. Sad deal. She was like a mother of 3 or something. Terrible. And she's out at 4 o'clock in the morning jogging.
Yeah. Sorry, this picture.
Yeah. So again,
And she did it every day, so.
every day, same route. Yeah. And that's the other thing, is kind of varying your routine a little bit here and there so that you don't have a constant pattern. You know, just a little side note, then I'll let y'all go. I actually got into doing everything that I do because a friend of mine that lived in Giddings at the time, she was broken into her house by a registered sex offender. And I really wasn't teaching firearms for women at the time. She called me at 3 o'clock in the morning screaming in hysterics that this guy had broken into her house and the police had come, and she was now terrified. And the thing that kind of saved her was she had a little medium-sized dog in the house. And that dog was barking and going crazy, and it kind of kept the guy at bay. He had broken in the back door, and she had gone out the front door and made it over to a neighbor's house to call 911. But she was a 55-year-old single lady, lived at home, but he had been casing the neighborhood. He had been released on parole he was a registered sex offender, and he had a push mower, and he was going door to door in that little neighborhood there where she lived, asking, you know, if he could mow people's lawns. And what he was doing was he was knocking on the door, and then he would say, "Oh, is your husband home?" And most of these ladies would say, "Oh, I'm not married." "Oh, well, do you need your lawn mowed?" "Well, what did you just tell this guy?" That there's no man there, right? And so he was casing this neighborhood by going door to door, and apparently watching her for quite some time, and knew she was single and knew her routine. And he broke in at night when he knew she was there, because what was he after? Her. Luckily he didn't get her. The police ended up catching him, which I was very thankful for. But that, and I'll never forget it, that sound of her screaming on the phone startled me awake at 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, it's one thing when I'm at work, because I'm ready, right? That's what you're doing. You're catching bad guys, solving people's problems, whatever. But when you're in your own bed asleep at 3 in the morning and you get that kind of phone call, it just makes you feel helpless because you're not in that mode. There's nothing you can do. So after everything was fine, he was caught and whatever, I called her the next day and I said, "You know, do you have a firearm? Do you have any way to defend yourself?" And she's like, "No, I've never shot a gun in my life." I said, "Well, would you be open to learning?" And she was like, "Yeah, I would." So I took her to a friend of mine's range out in Bryan. He was an instructor at the time, and he worked with her. We had a lot of fun shooting, and I just saw this terrified, you know, kind of like a mound of mush for her to go from that to, you know, picking herself back up, putting her shoulders back, having her head high, going, "It's never going to happen again." And she's what got me into teaching, because she went back to work and told 3 of her friends there, and then they wanted to learn to shoot, and then those 3 friends told 3 friends, and then before you knew it, I had 60 people that I had taken in about a month's time out to this range to teach them how to shoot, and that's where it all started. So, you know, I guess sometimes God works things in weird ways, you know, something bad has to happen for something good to come out of it. But that's how I got started doing what I'm doing, is because she was a victim of that man, and luckily he was caught. And I guarantee you, if that scenario was to happen to her again, the police wouldn't be chasing him. The coroner would be carrying him out. because she turned into a shooting machine with a whole different attitude. I was like, "Ooh, girl, I'm scared of you." But, you know, it took having that violent thing happen to her for her to realize, I've got to take my life back. I've got to take control. And that's kind of what you're doing here today, is you're kind of listening, absorbing all this, thinking about places you go and how your life is and how your home is and what you do in your car and all those things, and just making some better choices so that we take our lives back and we don't let these crooks get a hold of us. Okay?
Were you in Austin when Chief Manley was there?
Brian Manning was actually my sergeant back in the day. I was the detective on the street response team, and he was my supervisor.
He was great.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
His mother and I were good friends.
Okay, yeah, Brian is awesome. But I just wanted to thank y'all so much for allowing me to come. I feel very blessed to be able to do these in the community, and that little sheet has my phone number on it, so please put that in your phone. If you need me for any reason, you've got a safety question, church question as far as security goes, firearms question, just whatever, please reach out to me. If I don't have the answer, I'll find somebody that does. But I've been doing this for a long time. I've been teaching classes and stuff since 2012, so now for 10 years. So not too much that I don't have the answer to, but sometimes you do throw me. But please reach out. If the women want to get involved in the gun practice league, it's Guns and Glitz on Facebook, Guns and Glitz Women Shooting League, and I appreciate y'all having me.